I mean, imagine admitting you're a Tommy Robinson fan. You know, who's your favourite person who's ever been convicted of contempt of court? Oh, Tommy Robinson, he's my favourite. There have been so many examples of contempt of court and idiots breaking the law. Tommy Robinson is my absolute favourite. People are going to go to the prison, apparently, and they're going to demonstrate outside the prison. I mean, is there... You'll have to help me, because is there like a special club you have to be a member of to be a fan of Tommy Robinson? I mean, do you have to have had some of your brain removed, or perhaps be bludgeoned on the head with something? Because the amount of stupidity over this story, especially on social media from Tommy's fans, who really genuinely seem to think that there's some sort of like crazy conspiracy that's been taking place. And there is no conspiracy. There is no conspiracy. Basically, well, if you do you know the story? Do you know what I'm talking about with Tommy Robinson and what's been happening this week? He's been jailed this week for contempt of court on 3 different counts. And this all took place during a broadcast that he did outside Leeds Crown Court back in May, I think it was, actually, when he was filming outside and filming defendants as they came in and out of the courthouse and all those sorts of things. And he was in contempt of court. And his fans seem to believe that there is some sort of terrible conspiracy taking place at the moment and that this is some sort of stitch-up. I can tell you now, categorically, it is not a stitch-up. He was found to be in contempt of court. And if you believe anything else, you are so stupid. It's unbelievable. Because all he was doing was potentially prejudicing a trial. And because it's quite complicated, and because a lot of Tommy Robinson's fans are not very bright, I think that this is what has fueled this idea that there's some sort of conspiracy. But when you are a journalist, you cannot prejudice a trial. You can't stand outside the courthouse and speculate on a defendant's guilt or innocence. You can't film that defendant as they're going in and out of the courthouse before the verdict's been given and talk about whether they look guilty or talk about whether you believe their story and all of that kind of stuff, which was more or less what Tommy was doing. Now, there are nuances around this case that make it a little bit more complicated. For instance, some of the police officers, whilst Tommy was naming some of the suspects, said that he was not breaking the law. And at that moment, just naming the suspects, which were already in the public domain, maybe he wasn't. But what else he went on to do absolutely broke the law. Especially because what further complicates things, and again, if you're one of Tommy's fans, you probably won't understand this, there were further reporting restrictions on the case. So as well as the normal laws of contempt of court, there were further reporting restrictions, meaning that the verdicts couldn't be given. There could be even more strict rules enforced about speculating about the defendants, because there were 3 cases being run at the same time. Such was the scale of the case. 3 trials. 1 trial had had its verdict delivered. 1 trial, the jury was deliberating, from what I understand, and that was during Tommy's video. And there was a final trial where the jury hadn't given their verdict yet. And so, because there were multiple trials and multiple victims, by Tommy Robinson being outside court and filming the defendants, the juries from the 3 trials would be able to join the dots, because none of those juries knew that there were other trials going on. So, because of that, Tommy's actions nearly saw one of the cases collapse. Now, he knew this. If you believe that this was anything other than him trying to publicise himself and deliberately jump on a cause in order to further his ambitions, then again, you're so stupid. He refers to the reporting restrictions about 3 times outside the court, when he starts the broadcast. He says more than once, I need to be very careful. There are reporting restrictions on this case. He then goes on to talk about how he believes the restrictions are there to cover things up. That is not the case at all. It's there so that people get a fair trial. And because of this total donut who's decided to broadcast outside, some of the defendants of one of the trials actually, and one of the jury members of one of those trials, saw Tommy's video, told the judge, the defence lawyers for all of the men accused, then attempted to get the juries dismissed, which would cause a massive delay to the trial and all of those sorts of things. Luckily, the judge put his foot down and said, until I know evidence of other jurors having seen the videos, then we're not going to stop the trial. But he could have done, and because of that, that is why Tommy Robinson has been convicted. And just there are so many ironies around this story. So many ironies. I'm surprised Alanis Morissette isn't in the corner strumming away as we speak. The irony being that a fair trial is the linchpin of the British judicial system. It's the linchpin of all of British laws. And I presume that if you were one of Tommy's supporters, especially with his views on immigration and the like, you probably voted Brexit. Why? Because you wanted more control over British laws. So now you're actually sort of contradicting the fact that these British laws that you seem to want to take control of so much, you're now dismissing. Secondly, of course, if you support Tommy Robinson, you actually, in theory, support the child rapists that you seem to be so vociferously talking about and hating. You're actually contributing to them being on the street because they could have been released. So by supporting Tommy Robinson because you don't like child rapists, you could actually see them get released by supporting him. So that makes you a bit stupid as well. And ironically as well, because of Tommy's connection now, I think fewer people are going to talk about the problem of child grooming. And just because you want to see justice done and you support Tommy Robinson going to prison doesn't mean you're suddenly in favour of child grooming, which is the accusation you get whenever you try and reasonably discuss this with, illiterate morons on Twitter. They kind of think, that, you must be in favour of grooming gangs, that you're a paedophile apologist. No, I think the way in which the cases in various cities, Rochdale being one of them, where abuse was covered up, abuse wasn't investigated, absolutely abhorrent. The officers involved should be reprimanded beyond belief. The people that carried out the abuse should be thrown in jail and have the book thrown at them. They should have lives of misery going forward. The fact that political correctness meant that more vulnerable girls got abused is absolutely horrific. But you can believe all of that and not be a fan of Tommy Robinson. And ironically, as I said, now it's going to be really difficult for people to speak up about paedophile grooming gangs. And if there is a particular racial or ethnic profile of those grooming gangs, it's going to be really difficult for people to speak up about that now, because the moment you do, you're going to be associated with Tommy Robinson. So ironically, the final irony is that probably people will speak about this less now. So, oh my word, the stupidity of these people and the stupidity of them having a go at the BBC, trying to beat up people at the BBC, trying to demonstrate outside the prison. It's just so stupid. Oh, it's annoyed me. I've been trying to get that. I've been wanting to get that off my chest all this week.